All right. So one thing about absolute is that absolute is synonymous to your, no, not synonymous, similar to your relative. But the only difference is that absolute positioning places an element relative to its nearest positioned parent. Now, this English is too much, but I'll explain it one by one. Now, the first is that what? The parent must have position relative, absolute, or fixed. Now, this is what absolute is trying to say. Absolute is saying that, let's say you have a div, right? You now have another element inside. If you're going to give that particular element that is inside a position of absolute, that means the parent of that div, that's the div, has to have either what? Relative, absolute, or fixed. Now, I've not told you what absolute does yet. I'll explain that very soon. Now, if no position parent exists, it is positioned relative to the body. Move on. Now, the element is removed from the normal flow. Now, other elements behave as if it does not exist. Now, let me give you a quick example of what I'm trying to say. You know, in this place, right, your inner lobe moves from here to here, right? And I said something. I said this particular inner lobe is still as this particular entity that it belongs to that lobe, right? Now, the thing about absolute is that if I give you this particular element as absolute, it is going to behave as if this element no longer exists, which means other elements can still exist. Now, that's the difference between absolute and your relative. Your relative and absolute will help you move elements from one position to another. For your relative, if you are moving one element from one place to another, it does not automatically eradicate that space. It still exists. But absolute is saying that what this particular space no longer exists. It is now invisible. Yes, you are seeing it, but it's invisible. It can now fit into there. That is why it is easier for you to place it's not for you to place an element with it's not for you to place a text on an absolute. Okay, let me give you an example. How many of us have seen text in image before? You've seen people write text on websites or anything. Now that is absolute. What it is trying to say is that that image probably doesn't exist because it is what absolute point. So when you're not writing that text, the text is not going to be written on the image. It's just going to observe that, oh, there's a particular element here for an image because that image is now what absolute. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Let me give a very practical example of what I'm trying to say. Now I used relative here, right? Let us use absolute and let's see what happens to this text. Please, I want you to do not worry about this one. Worry about this text that is here. Look at that text and see what happens to it. Now, if I come here and I give this particular one absolute, I want you to note something. I'm going to remove this left of 85 and then let us check what we have. Now, let us move left. Let's check what happens. Okay. Now, let us now move. You know what? Let's use this main. Let's use this main position of relative, and let's see what they have. Good. So now, what am I going to do now? Let's say I want to move this particular element, and I want to put it on top of this piece. Now let us check what's going to happen. Now the element here is what H1, right? Now I can just say H1. Now to move an element from its original position, what do you use? What to move an element from one position to another? What property to use? What position property to use? Relative, exactly. So if I give you the position of relative, right? Then I can give you the top of 20 pixels. Now let us check what we have now. Okay, that's not enough. Let's give 50 pixels and let's see what we have. Now, this is very, very interesting. What do you notice? What do you notice? The text is no longer appearing, right? It's now behind the image. But now let me change this particular one to absolute. This one, so it's relative rather. And let's see what's gonna happen. I think I'm gonna have to remove this. Okay, why I forget. But let me change it back to absolute. Now, I don't want to explain the next thing yet, but I don't want to explain the next thing yet because of we've not gotten there. So I'm going to explain absolute again from the beginning because I think everybody's already looking at me. So let us go back and explain absolute again.